Welcome back to another video. So I'm currently sat in my office. It has just literally gone 2 p.m. I've been in here working since 8 o'clock this morning. I'm now going to have like a 45-minute-ish break, and then I've got a podcast booked in at 3 with Lewis Smith, who runs Forza or owns Forza Performance. He is a coach here in the UK. It's him that actually handled me at my comp at British. So we're going to film a podcast later on, kind of all around his business and coaching and everything. So that's booked in for 3. I also need to do a food shop, and I also need to train because it is week 4, and today I have a big squat PB planned. Well, it's volume, so it's not crazy heavy, but it's a PB nonetheless. So I kind of need to crack on, but I haven't really had a break yet. My hair is still wet as well because I washed it like first thing this morning, and I've just literally left it in a towel all morning. Which I need to stop doing, but it's fine. But yeah, realistic though, like, my office is a mess at the moment. I've had to just kind of put everything on the windowsill because otherwise Zuko will like eat it. But I've literally still got bowls there from like breakfast and lunch where I've literally just gone downstairs, grabbed food, come upstairs and eaten it while I was working. I'm assuming you could see them in that. But yeah, so when I say my days are boring for at least the first half of the day, I mean it. Like, I've literally just been kind of sat here working non-stop. But yeah, I'm caught up on pretty much everything. I've got a couple little bits left to do, but I'll do them after the podcast, kind of before I train. I'm probably going to train and then do the food shop, but it depends on time. I don't really want to be training super late. Also want to get started on sorting my boyfriend's spare room because we picked up some furniture for it the other day. So now basically he's going to fill those drawers and stuff later today, and then we're going to have a bit of a rearrange and figure out what we need to do, what room we've got, what we need to get. Probably going to try and pick up some like secondhand furniture and stuff over the next kind of week before Christmas, when we've both got some time or more free time, like more time off. I'm still going to be coaching, so I still work part-time in my office job, but I'm completely off from that over Christmas, so I'm still going to be coaching obviously, but that'll kind of be slightly shorter days, so it's not going to be too bad. And people don't tend to message as much over Christmas, and obviously some people take time off. So during the time where I'm not quite as busy, I mean, I've got lots of smaller jobs and other jobs that I've been putting off that I'm going to definitely work on getting done over the Christmas period so that they're done ready for the new year. Because like one of my big goals, which I'll talk about goals and stuff for next year in a different video probably, but one of my big goals for next year is just to go full in on business. Like, this year has been crazy for growth in so many areas, and business is one of them, and next year I want business to be pretty much the main focus. But I also want to show you guys what my working situation is like. Now I'm just going to very carefully wheel my chair out from under my desk. So now every single time I'm sat at my desk working, this is who I have by my feet. But I do have to be careful because there's so many wires under there, and he is just chewing everything. So I have to make sure that if he does start to wake up, I keep a very close eye that he isn't chewing any wires, which so far he hasn't. Fingers crossed, stays the same. And every single time I get up, even to literally just go through there for a pee, he will come and follow me, like, every single time. And whenever I've shut the bathroom door, like, he will be sat on the other side of it waiting for me to come back out. And then as soon as I open the door, his little tail wags and he gets really excited. And it's just the sweetest thing. But yeah, he's constantly sat under the desk now. The last week or so, or like last week especially, I was putting my dressing out in like a ball on the floor for him to sleep on. But that's actually in his crate at the moment because we like to leave something in there that smells like one of us. And my dressing gown is something that he's probably not going to shred to pieces. So he hasn't actually got a bed in my office at the moment. So last week he was laying by the radiator. This week he's laying underneath by my feet, but that's fine. They're nice and warm. Well, he's nice and warm. Yeah, nothing to really say. So basically got like 45 minutes, well, just under now to... I'm not going to eat again yet. I'm probably going to eat just before we film the podcast. I don't know how long it's going to last. I'm trying to keep them kind of 45 minutes to an hour and a half, anywhere in that range. Obviously if it goes over, it goes over. I don't think this one will, but we'll see. And then by that time, my food should have hopefully digested enough for me to then go straight in the gym and train. It'd be good to try and get my training done as early as possible so that then when my boyfriend's back from work and stuff, I can help him sort his room, I can get the food shop done, and we can actually like still have a bit of an evening together. But we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. I need to get my dog fed and get some other bits done before I hop on this podcast. Okay, so just finished filming my podcast. Oh, Instagram's playing out loud. Just finished filming my podcast with Lewis. Decent episode. First 5 minutes, I was just being attacked by our puppy. So I was very distracted from the conversation, which was funny. But no, it was a really good conversation just around like, mostly just around like coaching and different like programming methods and stuff that have been around kind of since he started and since I started and stuff. Really enjoyed that episode. That is going to be released on Monday, which is the 23rd, so that'll be next week. So keep an eye out for that, the Art of Lifting podcast. But yeah, really good conversation. I wanted to get him on like since I started the podcast, to be fair, and he's been on for preview show. But because I had an episode quite early on with Owen, who is coach for EST, I thought I'd kind of space out the businessy coaching chats. But there's a few more coaches I definitely want to get on. And I put a Q&A up on my Instagram a week ago. And I asked people what sort of conversations they want to see. And a lot of people said they want to see me talk to like higher level lifters and kind of before and after big competitions as well, like Worlds, Sheffield, Euros, like that sort of thing. A few people said about beginner lifters as well, or like newer lifters and just kind of entry level people as well, which I definitely want to do. But quite a few people as well mentioned that they would like to hear from more coaches. And I mean, as a coach myself, like I love listening and talking to coaches that are more experienced than me, that are bigger names than me, and that I can then learn from as well. Like it's a really good kind of tool for me. And to be honest, with this podcast, like it's massively helped me, like just from a learning, like development standpoint as well, and networking as well. Obviously, like so far I've only, other than some of the like American lifters and stuff and like Shell Backlund I had on, like the first few episodes especially were people that I kind of knew already. I knew I could hold a conversation with and stuff. But it's definitely been really good for me in terms of like networking, and I've got some amazing people I want to get on as well. I've also got another episode booked in tomorrow and one booked in for Friday, and that'll see me through until the first week of January, so that'll be good. And then I can, I think I've got a Sheffield preview to film and stuff, so I need to figure out who to get on for that. But anyway, that wasn't the point of why I was going to sit here and chat. I was going to answer a question that was on my Instagram Q&A, because it was quite a in-depth question that I didn't really feel like I could write the answer I wanted to give. And the question for that was, let me find it. Do you take into consideration weight classes of clients if they want to cut but aren't competitive? I don't think that was necessarily worded the best, but I think it was essentially like, what do you take into consideration if your client wants to cut into a different weight class, even if they're not competitive? And there's a few different aspects to this question and ways to approach it. So, like, basic answer, like if I have a lifter that weighs 68 kilograms and they want to compete in the under 66s, it's their like first year or so in the sport, they're not competitive, they're kind of just going to beat their own total, I probably would say don't bother cutting. I would say just go in as a light 74. You can then have breakfast and drink plenty before you weigh in and fuel yourself a bit better and potentially then hit bigger numbers on the platform. If a lifter is someone that is likely to be competitive in the future, and we can see that maybe another 6 months, 12 months of competing, they're likely to be more competitive and actually someone that probably will cut into a weight class, then I'm more likely to say, well, do you know what? Why don't we trial cuts for this, like this competition, this regional competition? We'll trial a method of cutting, nothing too invasive, nothing too like harsh. Just see how you get on and go from there. But yeah, if a lifter isn't competitive and they're kind of just doing the sport for fun, there's probably not much reason to cut. I think people get very emotionally attached to weight classes, and I think it's weird because I think women typically get attached to lower weight classes where men kind of think they have to bulk up to the next one above. That is a bit of a generic, like a generalizing statement, and that's definitely not true for everyone. Like there's plenty of men that kind of hold on to lighter weight classes as well, like if they don't think they're necessarily like muscly enough to move up and stuff like that, but actually a lot of the time they're going to look more muscular, and obviously they're going to put more muscle on if they go up a weight class and things like that. But I wanted to give some examples of when I would be okay and open to helping a lifter cut a weight class if they're not competitive. So I'm thinking more of like a long-term cut here rather than like a last-minute weight cut into a comp. So firstly, I mentioned this on my Instagram story. I will always let my lifters and clients decide what they want to do. My job is to give them my honest opinion and the best advice and help that I possibly can. The only time I would disagree with helping a lifter do what they want to do is if I thought it was going to be detrimental to their health. That's the only time. So let's say someone's like, let's say we've got a sub-junior under 63 female and she wants to cut to under 57 purely because she thinks she's more suited for that category. I'm probably going to say no unless she's eating nothing but shit and her body fat is pretty high and it's probably going to be an easy fix to cut some weight off. Generally speaking, especially sub-juniors in particular, but also juniors, you probably shouldn't be cutting. Like, you probably shouldn't. Like, you're better off just letting your body slowly grow and adapt, because those are the years as well where you're going to pack on, like, especially males, like with your testosterone naturally being so much higher through puberty and stuff, like you are, Joe Borenstein said this on my podcast episode with him last week, like you're essentially on free steroids at that age, like not so much for females, but definitely for males. Your hormones and everything, like you're so elevated through puberty that why negate the effect of that by being in a caloric deficit when you could be in a slight surplus the entire time and just pack on as much muscle mass as possible, because that muscle mass is going to make you a better lifter in the long run. But what I was actually going to say was, if a lifter wants to cut a weight cut, let's say we've got a 120 plus male and they weigh about 130, 140, maybe even 150 kilos, like that's obviously quite a lot to drop to make under 120. But their diet is, like they're on ridiculously high calories, they're eating a lot of processed foods, very calorie dense foods, they're not necessarily fueling their body in the most effective way, they're not eating foods with a lot of micronutrients in, they're not eating nutrient dense foods, they're not eating like voluminous foods. It's probably going to be quite easy for them to cut down. Not necessarily, like obviously if they're in like the higher range that I just mentioned, like 150 kilograms, getting them down to under 120 is probably going to be pretty difficult, but it would be a long-term thing. But basically my point is, if a lifter wants to cut a weight category and they've got the body fat and the dietary changes available to make that possible without negatively impacting their recovery, because quite often if a lifter's diet isn't the healthiest, then cutting weight can actually benefit them because they're going to be eating more whole foods in general. And when you eat more kind of processed foods, things like that, like you are going to feel a bit more inflamed and your recovery is probably going to be hindered versus eating more like nutrient dense, high fiber, like I don't like saying good or bad foods because everyone's diet should be a combination of both. Like no one eats clean all the time, but you get what I mean when I say this. Like if it's a simple dietary swap and dietary changes and you're just essentially cutting out fast food, for example, then there's no issue with trying to cut a weight category, because quite often as well, especially when you're on the heavier end of the weight classes, dropping a weight category can quite often improve your leverages, for example, like especially with deadlift. Squat typically and bench are better when you're heavier. Deadlift improves when you're lighter, just because of the way your body is built. Like quite often, like especially like if you, for example, if you have a big gut, squatting, when you're in the hole, you're going to feel more supported if you have a big gut. Whereas deadlifting, you're going to probably struggle to actually reach the bar and comfortably brace if you've got a big gut. So that's where losing weight can benefit your total, because you're going to be improving your leverages. It could negatively impact squat or bench potentially, but it could then positively impact your deadlift and overall your total could go up. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. But essentially, I guess my answer to that question, like, I'm not going to advise someone to cut anyway. Like, unless one of my lifters, like, I don't have lifters at that high of a level, but let's say my lifter is like an Evie Corrigan, where cutting will make you win Sheffield, fair enough. Or even make you win Worlds, make you win Euros. Then we'll talk about it and we'll consider it. But if it's going to be a cut that involves you losing so much body fat or getting to a really low body fat that it's probably not sustainable long term, there has to be a very good reason for us to do that cut. Like, I don't want to ever put my lifters in a position where they're going to obviously be unhealthy, they're not going to be recovering as well, because when you're in a caloric deficit with powerlifting, especially if it's quite an aggressive caloric deficit, you're going to be more susceptible to injuries. You're not going to recover as well. You're probably not going to be putting as much on your total. You are essentially, like, it is a big decision to make. And if, like, most of my lifters are in the sport more for fun, or they're still in the first kind of year or two of building and they want to be competitive, like, obviously I will always help my lifters get as competitive as possible, and that is the goal for a lot of them, like, long term. But I've lost my train of thought. I've completely lost my train of thought. Of course I have. This is why I can't, oh my God. I think my point was going to be something along the lines of, if you're doing this sport, oh, there we go, it's back. If we're doing the sport for fun, why are we worrying about dieting and cutting? I think quite often it does, like, especially on the female side, it stems from diet culture. Women will, like, for myself, for example, when I was younger, I started as an 84 kilo lifter. I generally sat between 80 and 84 kilos naturally when I started powerlifting. Like, I'd been lifting, like, bodybuilding for a couple of years, but I was only like 18, 19, I think I was 18. And I was like 80 to 84 kilos. I wasn't really tracking my food, and I got a nutrition coach. And I basically said to my nutrition coach, which, to be honest, wasn't the best nutrition coach, I basically said to her, look, I want to be as lean as possible. I want to be lean and I want to be strong. I want to essentially recomp and be lean and strong. And she took that to mean essentially me cutting as light as possible. And I did end up getting injured, but basically I cut to 72s, which at the time the category was 72, where now it's been split between 69 and 76. But at the time it was 72, then 84. So I cut to the 72s, and actually the cut wasn't too difficult. But the reason the cut wasn't too difficult was because I worked in a gym, I was teaching spin classes 2-3 times a week, as well as like aqua aerobics, which was in a really humid room. I was teaching other classes, I was on my feet most of the day. I had clients that would like me to join in with their cardio sessions and things like that. So generally my actual expenditure was a lot higher. On top of that, I was training 5 days a week, and I was doing stupid volume. Like I found some old programs when I got my computer, because it had access to my OneDrive I hadn't looked at in years, and my volume on my old programs was so bad, like so bad. But anyway, long story short, still quite long, I ended up getting injured, and I genuinely think that is because I cut so much weight. And it wasn't hard for me to cut, because to be fair, my diet before I started tracking wasn't the best anyway, but my calories were pretty low. But I also worked in a fitness environment with bodybuilders that were on prep most of the, or like half the year, or like if the boys weren't on prep, one of the girls was on prep. So I was always around people that were eating less than me, or the boys, to be fair, were eating like the same as me when they were in their final bits of prep. But like, it didn't feel like I wasn't eating a lot because I was around people that weren't eating a lot. But for what I was doing and for what I was aiming to do, I needed more fuel for my body, for my recovery, especially with that much energy expenditure, and for my frame as well. But my point was actually going to be, looking at myself now as an 84 kilo lifter, like 84 is where I belong, and I do firmly believe that. Like at the moment, I've not been eating great. I mean, I've not been binging, but I've had like more takeaways than I would probably have an entire year over the last 2 weeks since British. Like I've not really been tracking my food. I'll track some meals, but not all of them. And yeah, my intake's definitely been higher, and I'm probably sitting about 87 to 88 kilos right now, just through no effort. My expenditure is also down because although I'm still training, I'm not really going for walks. My step count's really low, because we can't take Zuko for walks yet. Like my steps are really low because I'm basically just staying in with him because I don't want to have to leave him any more than kind of necessary. And yeah, my expenditure's pretty low. So I'm naturally sitting just a few kilos above my weight class, is my point. But if you look at my body, I'm obviously not going to stroke for the camera. If you look at my body, I have quite high body fat. Like you can see it in my comp pictures. My body fat isn't low. However, I carry my fat all in my body. So it's quite obvious that my fat is there, if that makes sense. And this isn't me negatively talking about myself. Like it's literally just fact. Like me and my mum kind of laugh because I am built so similarly to my mum, but my mum's like this 5'2", like I don't even know, she weighs like 57 kilos or something. Like my mum's this tiny little woman. I don't know if you used to play on Paint as a kid, like the app, I don't know what you call it, Paint on the computer as a kid, right? And if you go from the corners of a picture and you stretch the picture, my mum is the small picture, I am the big stretched version. I have higher body fat than her, absolutely, undeniably I have more body fat, but I just have more muscle mass. And I'm like a bigger build of my mum. And the thing what I was going to say was, over the last few years, like my mum looks fantastic. Like she's a very fit, healthy woman. She really keeps herself in shape. But we carry our fat in a very similar way. And it's made me realise that if I cut to 76s, like I've got the body fat to cut to 76, like I absolutely have. However, if I were to actually cut to 76, I'd probably still have this same shape. Like I would still have this same shape, because even when I was 72, I was much smaller and I was thinner and my arms were smaller. I didn't really have back fat like I have now. My stomach was flatter, but I still looked pretty much the same. Obviously now as well, I have a lot more muscle mass. So when I was 72 before, I didn't have that much muscle mass. Now I have a lot more muscle mass. So for me to cut to 76 is like, yes, I have the body fat to do it, and diet culture often creeps into my mind. This is a very full circle story. Like this is what I was trying to get back to. Diet culture often creeps into my mind and makes me think, you know what, I should cut to 76. And part of me is like, well, I'm going to do a cut in January, which I am going to do a cut in January just because I want to kind of challenge myself with that. I haven't done a cut in years, like not properly, apart from just like slowly cutting to comp weight, but I want to do an actual cut in January. And part of me is like, well, if I do get down to like 81, 82, I should just carry on to 76, which I'm not going to do because that would be silly, because this body weight, I am progressing my best. I'm eating kind of well. I track mostly year round, but I get the chance to kind of lapse with that a little bit if I want to and stuff. But essentially my point was, I think a big thing with women in powerlifting especially, and I definitely men too, like I don't want to generalize here, But diet culture mentality does creep in, and when you first start this sport, let's say you start as a junior female and you start in the 76s even, right? But actually when you get to like 23, 24, you maybe leave uni, you go into like the real world, and you're getting like an office job, for example. Your weight's probably going to slowly creep up just because your lifestyle has changed. But you have that emotional attachment to 76, and if you say to yourself, I'm going to go up to 84, especially with 84 being like the last category before there's a higher, like before unlimited, like 84 plus, I think you attach yourself to that lighter weight class, and mentally it's so difficult to allow yourself to go to the next one above. Like, it's a really difficult mental decision, and it's something that I will probably talk about in more detail at a different point, but I've actually got to crack on with what I've got to do. I was talking for way longer than planned. I'll chat to you guys in a bit, but basically I was just going to say that there are often times when people can cut when they're not a competitive lifter, but usually that will be more of like a health thing than it will be for an image thing. Like, if someone just wants to lose weight and compete in a lighter weight class for their body image, unless there is a good argument for it and it's not just like diet culture, unreasonable kind of thing, then I probably wouldn't encourage it. Like, anyone that comes to me that wants to cut weight, we always have a conversation of, why is this your goal? And quite often there is good reason behind it, and I will always let my lifters make the final choice. But you have to figure out the why. And if the why is simply that society has taught you to be as light as possible and as small as possible, that's not a good enough why. Like, that's where you need to be like, okay, well, I want to be as strong as possible. I'm a powerlifter. I want to be the strongest version of myself. And you want to do that in a healthy way, and you want to do that feeling confident in your body and in yourself. But quite often it's reframing and figuring out the reasons why you want to drop that weight in the first place, and that can then give you the confidence and the power to be like, these are stupid reasons to lose weight. Why do I want to fit into like a societal norm when actually I don't want to be small, and I don't want to be small, I want to be big and strong? And that's where it's like, oh, well, maybe I should stay in this higher weight category and like recomp over time, for example. Anyway, I need to crack on. I will see you guys in a bit. Okay, so it is 20 to 7. I haven't trained yet. I was about to go out and train, but I realised the Bluetooth speaker had like no charge, and Zuko is going a bit nuts. Like, he always gets really hyper when my boyfriend gets home at like 5ish, well, 5:30, and I'm just trying to get him to settle a little bit before I put him in his pen while I train, because I can't really keep him free roam in the house. But he's currently sat, the camera's gonna twist, in my lap. The only time, like when he's hyper, the only way to get him to like calm down, like we can play with him as much as we want, it doesn't work. If I sit on the kitchen floor with my legs crossed with a little gap in the middle, he will pretty much 9 times out of 10 just crawl in and cuddle me. And that's the only way I can get him to like actually calm. So that is currently what we're doing, just while my speaker charges for like 5-10 minutes or so. But yeah, he's been very bitey tonight, which is annoying. Like, when I was filming the podcast, like, he just kept biting me, but it's fine. I say biting, like, obviously he's not viciously biting, like, it's playful puppy biting. But it's just a bit overstimulating when he doesn't stop. But actually, we're going to start putting him in like a timeout in his pen. We weren't going to, I don't know if I should be talking about puppy training on here, because I feel like I'm going to get like controversial opinions. But the general advice is, don't put, so we have a pen for him, and we have a crate in like on the side of the pen, so he can kind of have access to all of that. He'd have his crate to sleep in, and his pen to like play in and ponder around in and stuff when we're not here, or at night time. And it's mostly to keep him safe. Like, if I could, I'd give him free rein in the living room and just shut him in there, but there's like loose wires and stuff, and there's other bits that we don't have to get, and obviously we don't have to destroy our sofa. So we put him in this pen, which he doesn't mind. It's just, that's not the point. The point is, when you're training a puppy, you're not supposed to punish them and put them in the crate or the pen, because they're supposed to learn of it. It's like a safe place. It's like crate training. It's teaching them that it's a nice place for them to be, and it's like a positive place for them. But actually, after speaking to someone today, their dog is like very well trained. He's like, well, for the breed, like, he's very well trained. Like, I think he seems really well trained. And they said that actually when he was really naughty when he was younger, as much they crate trained their dog, and he still to this day sees his crate and is like, sleeps in it and sees it's like a safe, nice place. But it's also where he goes for a timeout. And I think we're going to start trying that, because to be honest, when he's bigger, he probably will have more than just the pen anyway. Like, we're going to give him more space, because huskies can jump pretty high, and if we leave him home alone, or like at night time, he's just going to jump over the pen. So we're probably going to end up, like, we'll keep the crate for him to sleep in as long as he still uses it, but we're going to probably give him the whole living room soon anyways. I say soon, like in the next couple of months. So I'm going to start putting him in timeouts when he bites, which we did tonight actually, and I think it worked a little bit actually. I'm also very upset. I've got my Inaka t-shirt on underneath, And there's a massive hole in the back that my boyfriend noticed, which is a puppy tooth hole. But that's fine. Obviously I'm not wearing clothes around him that are like really expensive or like my best clothes. And like with Inaka, because I have a code for them, which is Sian, if anyone wants to buy from there. At least I know, like, firstly, their clothes are really reasonably priced, and also, I mean, I can still train in it if it's got a hole in it anyway. I'd rather not have a hole in it. But if I order again, I also get some money back from like commissions, so it's fine. It works out even cheaper. So that's the thing. But yeah, I don't know. I was gonna go out and train, obviously, which I will in a minute once my speaker's charged a little bit more. Feeling good for tonight's session, I think. Like, I'm a bit tired, but it's also quite late. I'm on another can of Monster, which I probably shouldn't be. Diet and stuff's been fine. Like, it hasn't been optimal, but I've been, especially today, prioritising foods that I know are going to kind of help my session. Although we are very short of food in this house. Like, I've been putting off a food shop and just trying to, like, work through some stuff, because basically I want to do a huge food prep at some point over the next, like, week, probably next week one day, and I'm going to, like, film everything that I cook, and I will kind of make a video around it, and basically trying to get a big head start so that once Christmas is done, as soon as I feel ready to kind of start my cut, I will just start taking meals out of the freezer that I've already prepped, and it'll just be easier than having the overwhelming thing of, oh, I've got to start a cut and prep all this food. Like, I'll get the prep stuff done before, or at least start it. So yeah, basically been trying to run the freezer down a little bit and stuff, so food in the house is very, like, sparse. But yes, I also, in my last video, which ended up being a ridiculously long video, I said at the end, I was like, let me know what you think in terms of, like, length of video, because my last video was more of like a vlog style video, which is what I want to do. Like, I want to put that sort of content out because that's the content that I enjoy. But I also, obviously, I'm going to keep my training in each video as well. Like, I want to keep showing my main lifts and what I'm doing, because I am a powerlifter, and that is kind of why I started this channel, and also I can then look back on my training and stuff too. But I was like, oh, what would you guys prefer? Would you prefer, like, one big video of the whole week? Would you prefer smaller videos throughout the week where it splits up so it's a little bit shorter? And I've had some good feedback, and I think basically based on the conversations I've had with a few people, but also based on, like, what I think will be easiest for me, is I'm going to just do shorter videos. So I don't know exactly how many it'll be each week, and it'll probably vary from week to week, but I'm basically telling myself, well, if I've got enough content filmed from, like, today will probably be one video, because I've actually filmed probably at least 10 minutes worth of me talking, if not more already, plus my training clips, and then recapping my session later. That's enough for one video anyway. So I'm probably going to basically just do, like, between 1 and 3 uploads a week. But I'll probably do 2 or 3 videos a week and just make them shorter, like, quicker videos. Like, I think then it's, like, easier to digest. And also, like, I really like longer content for when I'm working. Like, I'll quite often, like, if there's people that I enjoy watching, or, like, podcasts and stuff, I'll put them on in the background while I work. But if it's a video that I actually want to pay some kind of attention to, like, I prefer it, this literally just TikTok brain. I don't actually use TikTok, to be fair, but I prefer, like, a 10 to 20 minute video, like, and then that's something I can sit and watch while I, like, eat my dinner or something and pay a bit more attention to. So I kind of want the option for people to kind of have both, which I think is quite a common thing. Like, some people might put these on in the background while they're working, some people might watch them, like, actually watch them, which, if you do that, I appreciate it. So yeah, I think basically I'm just going to start uploading content when I have enough content to upload. Also, I've really been enjoying doing Q&As on my Instagram. Like, I've only done 2 weeks in a row consistently, but I enjoy it, and I've been getting quite a lot of, like, good questions. And, like, the one I did last night was very heavy on, like, nutrition and stuff, which was really fun. And it's nice, like, I don't really get asked complex questions, but it's like, it makes me think for a second, because I think imposter syndrome kicks in, and it's like, I just realised I wanted to ask Lewis about imposter syndrome on our podcast, and I forgot, but that's fine. I'm sure I can come back on anytime. But yeah, no, like, I think partly, like, imposter syndrome, when people ask me, like, coachy questions, I'm like, oh my God, do I know enough to answer this? Which, the questions I've been asked are very basic questions, of course I do. But it's like putting my own spin and my own opinion on stuff as well, which is something I always used to be really scared to do, which is why I never used to really do Q&As. But yeah, basically I was going to say I'm going to keep doing Q&As on my Instagram, I think, like, most weeks or every other week, depending on, like, I don't want to do them too often, because then I think, one, people won't read the answers anyway, because they'll just see it in, like, I know there's a few coaches that I follow that I probably shouldn't, I'm not going to name them obviously, but, like, I'm not going to say it, but they do, like, Q&As at least once a week, and they give really great in-depth answers, but it's almost like I just skip their stories every time now, because I'm like, I just don't want to read all this, like, I'm just, and that is, like, a really bad thing, I think, with our generation and, like, our, like, social media culture. But on that though, I do have to say, I don't think my attention span is as bad as, like, actual TikTok brain. Like, I prefer longer content anyway. But, like, with Q&As and stuff, what I was actually going to say was, any questions that I think are, there's like, I'll answer them on my Instagram story where I can, and obviously like, I don't really like talking on my Instagram though. So anything with a bit of like a longer context to it, or more context to the question, I'll then save for YouTube. And I think it just allows me to add like a little bit more of like a topic to my videos too, which ties in, like I've said this many times in the past, like if you're watching this and you have a question you want me to answer, do let me know. Also, I'm hoping over the Christmas break to film a video on programming. I want to do it on a whiteboard, basically. I've decided, rather than trying to set up my computer system and talk through and like screen record as I'm talking and do that kind of thing, I essentially have to like stream it almost. I'm going to probably just use whiteboard and make it like as simple and basic as possible on how to write a program. And I'll probably do more of like a generic programming, like general fitness first, and then I'll tailor in the powerlifting side, because there's actually not tons of difference, to be fair. It's just a more specific set of goals with powerlifting and movements. So I'll probably do that over the Christmas period. I don't know when it will be released, but I think that would be a really nice video to put out, and especially if I make it a little bit more like, or part of it more like generic fitness, because obviously with January, like a lot of people do try and start their fitness journey in January, and I get it. I'm not one of, like when I used to work in the gym, it was sometimes annoying because it was like, obviously we'd have a massive influx of work and members, and like the gym I worked at, it wasn't like we got benefit from the extra work. Like we'd go from December where we'd have like empty gym, and then we'd have January where it was just like packed, and then we'd have all the members complaining about how busy it is, and that was annoying. But genuinely, if you feel motivated at the start of the year and like you want a clean slate on January 1st, and you want to start your journey on January 1st, just do it. Like if that's like, you can't rely on motivation to keep it going, which is where I think a lot of people fall off. But if you know that on January 1st, or let's say January 3rd, like by the time like the hangover or whatever from New Year's is gone, but like just start then. Like if you're motivated, why not start then? But you just have to remind yourself that your motivation is going to dip. It is going to dip, and you have to just push through and keep going. And you also have to be realistic. Like don't go in 7 days a week from day one. Like start at like 2 days a week, 3 days a week at the gym. And just make tiny little lifestyle changes. Like rather than uphauling your diet from January the 1st, you know, just be like, all right, I'm going to drink more water. For the first week of January, I'm going to focus on drinking 2 litres of water a day, for example. And then from the second week of January, it's going to be like, okay, well, I have 2 takeaways a week. I'm going to cut down to 1 takeaway a week from now on. And then from there, you can be like, all right, I'm going to add more vegetables to each meal. Like that, like little goals at a time, I guess. This wasn't where this conversation was going to go. But basically, yeah, I was going to say I want to make a video on programming. I've had it requested quite a few times. I just haven't actually done it, which is my bad and me being lazy. But I am fully invested in the YouTube side of things again now. I feel really good at the moment. Like I think being ill on Friday last week, I basically spent most of the day napping and like catching up on sleep. And then the weekend, we got a lot of stuff. Like, bearing in mind my boyfriend wasn't home most of the weekend, I feel like, I mean, I did a massive like clean downstairs, which is where like everything was just chaotic, obviously with the dog and everything. I did a huge clean downstairs on the Sunday, and then me and him kind of rearranged the living room and stuff on the Sunday night, and like we picked up some furniture and basically like had a really productive weekend, and I feel really refreshed this week. So I'm going to try and make sure that's a regular thing for me on a Sunday, and just do like a Sunday reset. Also, I have a confession. This is not what this was meant to be, but to be fair, at least it's distracting me from waiting for my thing to charge. I did something I never do on Sunday. I skipped the gym. So I said to my boyfriend, I might have even been before we moved into the house, like this first half of this year, I said to him when we were on the way to the gym once, and I really didn't want to go, and I was like, oh, I wish we could be those people that were like, should we just skip the gym and get a takeaway? And he was like, we should be those people. Obviously he doesn't mean it, and like with my goals and stuff, that's just not, it's not a possibility. Like, it's just not something we can do. But I remember we made a deal. We were like, right, once competition's done, because I think at this point it wasn't too long until All England's, and I was cutting from my bulk anyway, so I couldn't really do it then. We kind of made a deal that we'd do it once. We'd have one day at some point after my competition, which ended up being after all of my competitions from the year, where we skip the gym and we order a takeaway. It's going to be a night we really want to. And on Sunday, we didn't leave his parents when we collected the furniture until 8:15. So we got home about 8:30 on Sunday night. And I said to him, I was like, we've still got to go to the gym. And obviously we've been exhausted from like waking up with Zuko in the night and stuff. So I said to him, I was like, I'm not going to lie to you. Part of me is saying we should probably skip, like we can skip this one. The logic behind it being, I'm now going into week 4. So cutting back accessories will only help my main lifts anyway. especially because it's like my leg day and I've been really pushing my accessories, and I wasn't excited to go and not push either. Like, I want to go and push. The other big thing though was my lower back was, like I mentioned, so last week's deadlift session was a catastrophe and my lower back got super pumped. And when that happened, like for the rest of the last week, my lower back has been incredibly overly sensitive and getting pumped a lot. Not injured, not like a big bad problem, but I was very aware of it, and I was like, I think training legs is going to give me such a back pump. And like, even though I'm not going to have been pushing it because we're going into week 4, and week 4 I take my accessories a lot easier, I was like, oh, that's going to suck. And then I've got like a heavy set plan for tonight, or like a high rep heavy set plan for tonight, and then I've got high bar back offs, which usually make me get a little bit of a pump back anyway. So there were like multiple reasons behind it, but the irony of it is I didn't actually fancy a takeaway, but I was hungry, so I was like, we can order one. So we got a Greek actually, which was really nice. And the good thing about me not really craving anything like massively greasy or like dirty was that we got like a nice good quality meal. Like, obviously it was still fatty, like, and it was obviously all like cooked in oil and stuff, but it was literally just like I got steak and chicken with some fries. There was some salad in there. I picked that out. And halloumi, like that was my takeaway, and that was actually really nice, to be fair. And it wasn't a big portion either, like it was just enough that I felt good after. So yeah, that's my confession. For the first time in, I don't know how long, I skipped the gym. I was also still feeling a little bit rough, to be fair. Like, it was probably a sensible decision to skip it, if I'm being totally honest, which is why I'm completely fine with it. Especially because, like, in the past, if you've watched these videos for a while, like, there was a period where I was getting ill a lot and I would just train through it, which I still do. I definitely do still train through when I'm ill. But it's one thing where I'm learning that I need to listen to my body a little bit more, especially, like, I think the last time I was ill, I kind of was like, right, either take your accessories out or just take them super easy and you can still push your compounds. Like, compromise, pull something back to help you recover more. So yeah, anyway, just wanted to confess that. I think this video is going to be super long with me talking just as like a one-day video. This is the plan to make my videos shorter, doesn't seem to be working. But yeah, I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to head out to the gym.
City boy with a country swing. First we went from the court to the bikes, back to the course of my younger days. Lived through it all, but still nothing changed. Forever be me till I'm in the grave. Face all my problems, don't run away. Stand on my feelings, don't need a chase. Just shoot me straight. I'm like an acrobat, a circus act, like they got me in a cage. I could go tit for tat, the gift to gab, but can't give it to the hate. I'ma just tip my cap and dip right back to my little happy place. Back on that 9 to 5 again. Steady just working for Saturday. I've been going through the motions, trying to find my way. Never notice if you notice, so I smile and wave. All dry, stay focused, setting my little pace. And now all I have to say, I was a boy with a plan, that turned me into a man. And man, I keep winning and winning again. Whoops, I did it again. On business is right where I stand. Never been slipping on sand. And man, I keep winning and winning again. Whoops, I did it again. I was a boy with a plan, that turned me into a man. And man, I keep winning and winning again. Oops, I did it again. On business is right where I stand. Never been slipping on sand. And man, I keep winning and winning again. Oops, I did it again. Oh man, there he goes again. Every quarter records rolling in, then the quarters get to rolling in. Turning change right to paper, turning paper to the banks. I can't lie, so I can save it, so I slip some in the safe, throw the key away. My mama been worried, but she knows where I've been grinding down dirty, stay awake till I can. Swear I'm tired, been hurting, but I stick to the plan. All my life I ain't worried, leave the earth where I stand. I've been going through the motions, trying to find my way. Never notice if you notice, so I smile and wave. All dry, stay focused, setting my little pace. And now all I have to say, I was a boy with a plan, that turned me into a man. And man, I keep winning and winning.
Okay, so I've just finished my session. Finished a lot later than planned, so it's now 8:10. So I started training not long after 7. I think it was like 20 past by the time I started. So The session didn't take that long. I just had quite a big break between squats and bench. I'll explain why in a second. My camera hasn't got loads of battery, so I'm praying it doesn't die. But basically, top set of 8 on squats. Cannot believe how comfortable that was. 8 reps at 165. It was the end of November last year that I first ever hit 165 for a triple, and I was ecstatic. It's been just over 12 months, and I've just hit it for a set of 8 with room in the tank. Like, I could have probably done 12 reps. Like, don't get me wrong, I was a bit out of breath by the end, but that felt so comfortable. Like, I had so many more reps left in me. Like, it was absolutely sub-max, which is huge. And then I had 3 sets of 8 on a high bar at 125, which first rep of the set that I filmed, nearly lost balance. That wasn't ideal. But the thing I struggled with high bar was my back getting pumped. So obviously mentioned earlier about my back being pumped. My camera is literally about to die, so I'll finish talking when it later. It's fine. But basically my back got really pumped after high bar, like really pumped, and it was really uncomfortable. So I went indoors and just kind of sat down and just like relaxed, because I was like, I won't be able to set up properly on bench because it was so uncomfortable. The actual reps themselves were fine, but it's just because my back's been a little bit, like, it's been very tender and easily aggravated since deadlifts last week. So might move tomorrow's deadlifts to Saturday, but I'll make that decision depending on how I feel tomorrow. But basically high bar was fine. It was easy enough. It was just my back. So I went indoors and kind of chilled out for a bit. And then my boyfriend texted me when I was then about to come back out, being like, oh, I'm now on the way home. So I was like, all right, well, I'll wait for him to come home. He's like 5-10 minutes away. So then he could come out and give me lift offs for bench, which bench went so well. My first single at 112, I tucked. I went back to my old method of tucking, and it moved terribly. Weight felt fine, it just moved terribly. So I made sure to flare for the next, like, it was a nerves thing. I tuck more when I'm nervous. So I then flared for the next 2, and they were so comfortable. And I'm actually glad I messed up the first one, because it has just reaffirmed to me that I am stronger in a flared position. I just have to trust that my shoulders can handle it, which there was no pain in my shoulders doing it tonight, so they definitely can. And then back off 5s at 102.5. Felt really good. I will be honest, my butt definitely wasn't down for all of the reps on those back offs, but that is because my lower back, like tucking my lower back down to the bench and folding myself up like that, it does kind of cause a bit of irritation. So on my higher rep stuff, I'm not as strict about it, but I have no doubt on my singles, it stayed down completely. So basically, session couldn't have gone any better. Incredibly happy. That squat PB has really made me happy, and it really built my confidence for Saturday as well. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to end the video here. I'm going to be uploading more regularly, so you'll see my face again in the next few days, but my camera is literally about to die. So if you've made it to the end, thank you. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in a few days for the next video.
Whoops, I did it again. On business is right where I stand. Never been slipping on sand. And man, I keep winning and winning again.